This conversation is coming to us from the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 18, verses 18, 19, and 20. Now, we have all been walking, if you will, by faith. When it comes to the CDC guidelines and some of the regulations, we have had to have faith to believe in wearing a mask, that it will protect us. And we have had to believe in social distancing, that it will protect us. We've had to believe or not in taking the vaccine. It just depends on where you are. But by faith, we've had to believe in something, that we are protected by the blood of the Lamb. By faith, we've had to use wisdom. Yes, Jesus will protect us, but he gives us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. But this season in particular, we have faced epidemic after epidemic. It reminds me of the plagues back in the Bible, just a little bit different twist to it. But when we look at the word or the meaning of the word epidemic, it means a widespread occurrences of an infectious disease in a community at a particular time. The last 2 years, we've been in a particular time. And we've been facing doubt and uncertainty, all of us, in some sense. That's why Jesus came. He came to give us hope, to inspire us that we would have days like this. But fear not, because he has us covered. But we have to believe. When you look at what I call global epidemics, it'll make you doubt. It'll make you have some uncertainty. When you look at the COVID epidemic, when you look at the political epidemic, when you look at the gender identity epidemic, when you look at the racial unrest epidemic, when you look at the mental health epidemic, when you look at the inflation, our economy epidemic, when you look at spiritual epidemic, yes, Houston, we have a problem. And don't mention the lack of faith epidemic, the lack of trust epidemic. I was praying the other day and I was thanking God. I was being grateful, if you will, for how he has blessed us during this season with all of these beautiful messages on faith. And we need those messages because they're just so powerful, so encouraging, so inspiring. And so I was thanking God for how it has really blessed me, my spirit, me as an individual. And then as I'm laying there on the floor praying, God speaks to me and says, I want you to speak on faith. And I'm trying to say, no, hold on. That subject, that conversation has been exhausted. I don't need to touch that one. God is saying, I want you to speak on faith. And so I'm trying to debate with God saying, hey, you got messages like crazy faith and desperate faith and concepts of faith and strong faith and radical faith. I mean, there are so many beautiful messages on faith. And God says, again, I want you to speak on faith. And if you know about faith, faith is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. That's what faith is. And so let me just stay committed. Let me stay focused. Let me be obedient to the Lord. We're told that God has dealt every man the measure of faith, not a measure, the measure of faith. That's Romans 12:3. So there's a measure of faith with your name on it. Just think about that. It's assigned to you, every single one of us. And if you're like me, I'm asking God, well, hold up. Where is my measure? I mean, can I use it? Can I get it and put it in my savings account? Can I withdraw from it? I mean, that measure, Lord, that you've given us, where is that? So stay with me for a moment as I lay down some background work for this message. In the book of Matthew, chapter 18, but let's go back up to verse 1 and 6, where we see Jesus running through the land, running revival, if you will. as he's drawing, as the Bible says, multitude of people. And verse 1 reads like this: At the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Jesus' disciples are maneuvering, they're jockeying for position, if you will. They're asking Jesus for status. Who is your BFF? Who's your best friend forever? Who is your favorite? Yes, where do we fit in? Who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Do we fit in there? I mean, do you already have some positions already taken care of? I mean, have you already got some people in mind? Verse 2 reads like this: And Jesus called a little child. And Jesus called a little child unto him, and set him in the midst, watch this, in the middle of them. I love it when you ask someone a question and they bring an illustration. I just love it because I'm visual. I can really see it when you show me an illustration. Verse 3, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted, changed. Except you be changed. No acting. Except you be like Saul, changing from Saul to Paul, from evil to good. Yes, from sinner to saint. And said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except you be converted and become as little children. Listen to this now. He called the little child and said, Come here, sit here. And now he's telling the disciples, unless you be converted, unless you change and be as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Now, I'm quite sure that rocked their world, because adults don't know how to play child games. No, not adults. We want to be grown. I mean, come on, we've been begging to be grown for our entire lives, and now we're grown. And Jesus is saying, unless you reduce, unless you lower yourself, unless you get out of your own head and be as a little child, you won't make it into heaven. Do you hear me? Verse 4, Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child. Here it is again, this little child. Jesus is saying something to us about faith. This little child, just listen to it. The same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Jesus says, I need you grown folks. I need you to get out of your way and lower yourself and become as this little child if you desire to make it in. Verse 5, and whosoever shall receive one such little child, here we go again, in my name receiveth me. He said, whosoever have humility shall have grace. Verse 6, but whoso shall offend one of these little children, here, oh, watch this now, which believeth in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he was drowned in the depth of the sea. Jesus says, you know how we use that term, don't mess with Texas? Jesus says, don't mess with my children. He says, warning, Will Robinson, don't mess with my children. Now we're talking about faith, and we're trying to tie this back into this message. How do we get faith? Where does faith come from? And God is making it very clear. He's given all of us the measure of faith. What we need, God has already given. He's already supplied. In the book of Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1, Apostle Paul is telling us, be ye therefore followers of God as dear children. That word dear means highly valued or precious or genuine or innocent. Apostle Paul says, be ye therefore followers of God as dear children. Not as an adult. No. He didn't say that. Not as man and woman. He didn't say that. He says as dear children, which means being humble, being meek. Paul is sharing with us that if we're going to follow Jesus Christ, we must adopt a child, watch this, a childlike kind of faith. That's where we're headed. We must have a childlike kind of faith that will arrest the adult in us, yes, that's full of doubt, that's full of uncertainty, that's full of fear. See, that's what Paul is trying to get us. Paul is saying you don't need that in you. If you lower yourself, you'll be like children, because then you depend only on him and not on yourself. Do you have that childlike faith Do you understand that? Let me give you an example. Tell your children they're going to Disneyland. Just tell them. And you tell them when. At the end of the school year, we're going to Disneyland. If you tell them that, oh, they're going to hold you to that. And by faith, they're believing that they're going to Disneyland. They're going to see Mickey and Minnie Mouse. That's what they believe because you told them that. So by faith, they just start marking down all the places they want to visit and see and all the things they want to eat and do because they believe in you. And by faith, they believe that they're going. You see what I'm saying? That childlike faith. That's what God is saying. God wants you to have that Disneyland experience with him. That kind of faith that innocence comes through. That you believe in the, watch this, in the impossible. Children believe in the invisible man. Do you realize that? That's a childlike spirit. God spoke to the, watch this, invisible, and the visible was birthed into existence. Let me say it again slowly. God spoke to the invisible, and the visible was birthed into existence. This message embraces that childlike faith inside of you and I. The subject of this message is invisible faith. And our message begins in Matthew chapter 18, verse 18, 19, and 20. Verse 18 reads like this. Verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. And whatsoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. It's going to take some faith to believe in the impossible. It's going to take some faith to get you through. Verse 19, again I say unto you, that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything, that they shall ask, it shall be done for them by my Father which is in heaven. Our main verse is verse 19. Verse 20, for where two or three are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Jesus knows the challenges of agreement. Watch this. Our message is pulling from verse 19. The word agree is what I want you to focus on. Agree means having the same opinion about something. That means we agree. We have the same opinion. Romans 10 and 17 tells us that faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Let's read verse 19 again. Again I say unto you, that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, watch this, it shall be done for them by my Father which is in heaven. So I'm on this floor praying. I began to reflect on the woman with the issue of blood because the Lord is telling me I want you to give a message on faith. And so as I'm praying, the woman with the issue of blood comes to mind because I realize how challenging it must have been for her. Because we're told that she had seen all the doctors. She had seen all the soothsayers or all the sorcerers and witches. You just name it. She had seen everyone trying to find out how she could be healed. She had taken all the medication she could take. She had listened to all the remedies from, grandmama's old-fashioned remedies and old wise tales. So she had listened to it all. She had given her all for 12 long years. And you know how it is. We will try everything. I do mean everything and everybody's advice before we come full circle and come back or come home or in some cases come to Jesus. But we're going to try everything first. I mean, by the time we come to Jesus, we're broken. We're busted. We're at a point of no return. We're at our wits' end. I mean, hope is on dangling on a rope. And we're about to just give up. But then we remember or someone witnessed to us and we go ahead and we try Jesus. This woman with this issue of blood, she decided to press her way and try Jesus. This is the most important part of this message. The word agree we just spoke about, where you agree, where the two of you agree. Well, sometimes it's not two of you, it's just one of you. And so what you have to do is you have to realize that the woman with the issue of blood, she agreed with herself. See, she couldn't even go to Jesus until she agreed with herself. If she could agree with herself at the beginning of all this hardship, 12 years before, she might have been healed 12 years before. But she tried everything that you would normally try in the natural. She tried everything, going to the store, finding remedies, putting alcohol on it, putting peroxide on it, putting Vaseline on it. She was trying to heal her issue. And so she did what was common, like you and I. But when everything had failed, she went within. She went within herself. Because she went within the measure of faith that we all have. And she tapped into it. And when she tapped into it, she made an agreement with herself that I'm going to go and press my way to see this man they call Jesus. That I'm going to see what he has to offer. Everyone else has failed me. But she couldn't go until she agreed within herself. So she tapped into the faith that she had within her. Have you ever tapped into that faith that's on the inside of you? Have you ever knocked on the door of the faith that's on the inside of you? That's what she did. She knocked on the door. She tapped into, she agreed with herself. Jesus, do you catch this? You've got to agree with yourself before you can step out on something else. So she agreed with herself. And by agreeing with herself, she pressed her way, and she pressed her way through the crowd. You know the story. She had the conversation with herself, and she went and she touched Jesus, the garment of Jesus. And Jesus turned around. Who touched me? And seeing her and said, daughter, thy faith. Yes, not the doctors, not your mama them, not your grandmama remedies. He said your faith, the measure of faith that you have inside of you, that God gave you, the faith. He says thy faith, yes, has made you whole. Have you ever had enough faith to make yourself whole? I pray you do. We need it during this season. Peter, remember Brother Peter? Peter seen Jesus walking on the water. He thought he was a ghost. And so he made this statement, Lord, if it be thou, Lord, bid me to come. And Jesus said, Peter, it's I. He said, come. But before Peter could come, Peter had to have an agreement with himself. He tapped into the faith that he had on the inside of him. He didn't just walk out there. He said, Lord, if it be thou. You see, he's asking questions. He's trying to get some fillers out there, if you will. And Jesus says, yes, I agree. It's an agreement here. It is I. That's what your faith is. That's what God wanted me to share with you. That you have to have an agreement with yourself. Yes, before you can agree with anyone else. Do you agree with yourself what God has already given you? He created you. No one else did. He created you. And so when he created you, he put some things inside of you. Like the faith. Yes. The heart. Yes. He's put some wisdom, some knowledge, some understanding. He's put some stuff inside you that the world has been trying to sift out. Satan has been trying to come in and sift out all that he's put in. I pray that you understand. Satan is already lost. Oh, he has power to try to pull you on his side. But the faith you have, God has given you enough ingredients on the inside of you to reject him. Yes, to resist him. Because he's coming. He's got a game for you too. You remember the story about the centurion soldier? And Jesus said, I've never seen such great faith in all the land. He said, I've never seen such great faith. When the centurion soldier came to him and said, Master, if you could just speak a word, my servant would be healed. And Jesus said, let me just go to him. He said, no, Jesus, you're too important for that. No. He said, I've got enough faith to believe that if you spoke a word, just spoke a word, I don't have to touch your garment. You don't have to go touch his eyes. No, if you just spoke a word, Lord, I believe that my servant will be healed. How many of you have that type of faith? You jump on a plane and try to rush to see your mother and daddy because they're in the hospital. How many of you guys got enough word inside you to speak a word? So, Lord, I believe it in the name of Jesus that they're healed by faith. Do you have that kind of faith? Do you have that kind of faith where you can just speak a word? That you believe in your word, that you got an agreement within yourself, that if Jesus said it, you believe it. This centurion soldier, more than likely he was committing treason. Let's be for real. He's not even probably a believer, but watch this. More than likely his servant's a believer, and he's coming on behalf of his servant because he's heard his servant worshiping. Yeah, the centurion soldier made it very clear. I'm a man of authority just like you are. And when I say go, my servants go. He says, I pray that you just speak a word and my servant shall be healed. Jesus told him, Jesus blessed him. He says, verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith. No, not in Israel. And I say unto you that many shall come from the east and west and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. Many. But the children of the kingdom shall be cast out. Watch this. He's talking about some of y'all into utter darkness because you're playing. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And Jesus said unto the centurion, go thy way, and as thou hast believed, as thou hast agreed, so be it done unto thee. And his servant was healed in the same hour. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you get what Jesus is saying? That if you will agree with him, the Father's already given you what you need. Matthew 18:19 says it's so simple. Again, I say unto you, that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them, for my Father which is in heaven. Jesus said, then I'm going to be in the midst of it. Watch this. Isn't it something how Jesus said, I'm going to be in the midst of it? Jesus said, I got to see this. He said, because you humans, y'all don't agree on nothing. Jesus said, so if two of you can agree, that means y'all on the same page, thinking the same thing. Jesus said, oh, I'm going to step down and be a part of that. Yeah, I got to see that because that's special. Because humans don't agree on anything. Just look at our politics. Look at your children. Look at our families. Nobody is agreeing. Everybody's butting heads. That's exactly what Satan wants us. Let me tell you the story. I don't think my wife will mind me telling it. She might, but let me just tell you anyway. It just fits in so good with this message. We were praying one night, me and my wife, and she was on her side of the bed, and I'm on my side of the bed, big old king size bed. So we both on different sides, and we're praying. And I had mentioned to her what I want to see happen. And so I wanted to touch and agree with her. And we're good about this. And so we're one can put 1,000, two can put 10,000. So I said, I'm with the right person because my wife, she's a prayer warrior and we can just pray. And so we sitting there praying for this thing that I've asked for. And then as we get up from praying, I'm just happy. Hey, I'm proud. I'm just ready. I'm inspired. I'm excited. And as we're sitting there in the bed and doing small talk, we started talking about our prayer and how she prayed and how I prayed. And I realized when she told me that she prayed that I would become CEO of the company I'm working at. I'm saying, what? Whoa, hold up. Didn't we touch and agree? It's like, well, yeah. Look what God was showing me. God was showing me that I can't see her thoughts. I really can't see her faith. It's invisible. Her faith is invisible. I can't see it, and I can't see how she's thinking. And so therefore, if she's not speaking the words out loud, I can't even hear and see what she's saying. And so that bothered me because what she told me she prayed, I didn't pray that. I prayed, and I thought we had touched and agreed that I prayed that I would become the owner of my own company and the CEO of my own company. But see, I'm praying for ownership. She's praying for stability. She's praying for job security. I'm praying for a risky thing. She's praying for something that's already done. Something's already secure. And so my statement to you is that when you touch and agree, you have to really understand that you're agreeing. You have to make sure you get the adults out of the room. You see, if these were two children, the children are going to be on the same wavelength. But when adults get into the room, adults start thinking out of their own rigid, short-circuited mind. They're not syncing up. They're thinking about what they want based on what the needs are right now. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. But we had to vet that out. We should have talked about that before we prayed. Because now we've got a short circuit in the bedroom. She's praying her prayer and I'm praying my prayer. And we're just not gelling. That prayer didn't gel. We got to go back and repray this thing. You know I am. I want to repray that thing. I want to pray that thing off of us and pray this thing on us. When you pray, the both of you must touch and agree and adopt a childlike faith and an agreement-like faith in order for that prayer to prevail. You can't be in disagreement. I mean, think about it. Just think about this now. Be truthful. How many of you can really say that you've easily agreed with something? It's challenging, isn't it? For adults to agree on anything, it's very difficult because we don't really agree. We're always debating something. Adults allow their past experiences to get in the way of their faith. That's what adults do. Adults are used to, watch this, having their way. They're used to feeling that they are right, that they know best and what's best. You see, adults assume more than they agree, and that's the problem. The first agreement, watch this, is agreement between you, yourself, and I. That's your first agreement. It's you. Make sure you get it right. Because you can't agree with someone else if you don't agree with yourself. It's impossible. That's what faith is. Faith is walking through the land, trying to make sure you agree with yourself, with the faith that God has inside of you, so that you can touch and agree with Him. So the next time you pray, watch this, the next time you pray, stand on faith. Yes, with your husband, stand on faith with your wife, stand on faith with your children, stand on faith with your church. But make sure y'all synced up. Yes, make sure that there's a clear understanding of what you're praying about. You must be on one accord. If you're going to get a word through, I told you Jesus came down and was looking and saying, hey, if y'all two agree touching anything, he said, I'm going to be in the midst of it. I got to see this. I got to see it before I can believe it. Isn't that something that is hard for us to agree? Have you ever seen someone, the reason I want you to get this into your spirit, have you ever seen someone on a basketball court, and they make a shot at the last second, they make a shot that's put them, tie the game up or whatever, and they're just so happy and rejoicing, and you're running over trying to high-five them, but they don't see you because they're just so much into their own, what they've just done and their own accomplishments, and they run right past you, they don't high-five you, but your hand is still standing up there. That's what now faith is. Now faith is that you're doing something, you're working on something, and sometimes other people just don't see what you're doing. They don't understand your faith. And so guess what? Sometimes you got to high five yourself. Oh, yeah. Sometimes you got to agree with yourself. I told you about it. It comes first with you, the agreement. So sometimes you got to high five yourself, because sometimes that's all you have in this walk of faith. Because let's look at this now. Faith without works is dead. It's possible that you're not giving God anything to work with. And so you're always blaming, you're always complaining, but it's you. We're not doing your part. I prayed this morning that you come into agreement with your faith, like the woman with the issue of blood. I prayed this morning that you come into agreement with your faith like Peter was walking on water. I prayed this morning that you become like the centurion soldier, who Jesus was so amazed with, that this man, he stepped out on invisible faith. Surely you and I can touch the Lord with our visible faith, to believe, to be healed, and to be made whole again. Don't let this moment pass you by without tapping into the faith that God has given you. Don't let this day go by without tapping into your invisible faith. Don't let this day go by without tapping into that childlike faith. And don't let this day go by without the agreement kind of faith that you need inside of you. You high five yourself. I pray that through Romans 10 and 9, as you confess, here's your faith. Here you go. Have faith to believe. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, and you believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, guess what? You too shall be saved.